Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition right here on Thumb Coast TV. I'm Brady Beedon. He's Dennis Stuckey, and week 2 was interesting. Some for the good. Well, there were some very nice results, Dennis, but we have to start with one of the oddest negatives out there, a loss for Port Huron Northern. Dennis, listen, Lamphere is not a bad program. They beat Northern last year at Memorial Stadium, and Coach Ostrowski down there is a good coach. But Northern went down there this year and they lost 3-2. Not a misprint.
Really bothers you.
Well, so on the one hand, your defense has given up 9 points this year, and you're 1-1, which, yeah, that bothers me a little bit as a defensive guy. But more so that we had high expectations for Northern. They have supreme high-end talent on both sides, well, with Lincoln Watkins and Amir Moreland. I mean, those are 2 Division I players. To only score 2 points, I think everyone in that Northern locker room, from the head coach to the ball boy, is going to say that's unacceptable.
Yeah, so this is an interesting team to try to evaluate because they have, by far and away, at least numbers-wise, the best defense in the area. Maybe in the state. There probably aren't too many teams that have given up less than 9 points. I'm sure there's a few. But offensively, they're the worst in the Blue Water
Yes.
now. I think maybe only Mooney has scored fewer points so far. I don't know what to make of it. We thought if there was an issue, it was going to be the quarterback position because they had a freshman and a player who had never played the position battling for the position. And I think at some point during the game last week, Vinny came out and Cam Haryu went in. The results were they still didn't score. So I don't know what to make of it. Had they gone there and lost 30-2, would you feel any better or any
I'd feel
different? I'd feel a lot worse.
But
too.
okay,
So it's like
if they lost
it's still a 1-point loss.
If they lost 21-20, yes, I'd feel better. Because that tells me the offense has a pulse. Because, at week 1, you can give the pass. It's week 1, new quarterback, new staff. It takes a little bit. But 3-2, only your offense got shut out. Your defense scored your only points. That's where the concerning part is it's a pattern. And Dennis, a Utica Ford team that's coming in to Memorial this week.
That is clearly bipolar.
Yeah, because they lost to Salem by 54, I think,
Yeah,
and then beat
54-0.
Warren Woods Tower 41-0. Listen, I need to see Northern's offense run the touchdown play before I hope you come back and it's like last year in this spot where they went 2 forward and they won like 41-6. And I went, we're good, back on track. You'll have to see it at Memorial, and it's kind of a show-me game for them.
Yeah. Show-me game for the offense because I don't expect the defense to give up 41 points to Ford.
No.
I wouldn't be surprised if the defense gave up less than a touchdown. And for Northern, that's the good news. You only need to score a touchdown to win games with this defense. So score a touchdown for me, will you?
Leaning on a defense that much is tough because, in offense, you run one bad play, you fumble the snap, you lose 2 yards. You get sacked. You throw an incompletion. Defense, you have one bad play and it's 7 points on the board. So that's why leaning on a defense, even 1 or 2 mistakes, and now you're chasing big time. So that's why it's hard to say, okay, we only need to score 10 points and we'll win, because one mistake, heck, a special teams miscue can put points on the board. So Northern will be at home. We'll have it here on Thumb Coast TV and on GetStuckOnSports.com. Dennis will be there on the call. 7 o'clock kick on here and a 6:35 pregame on Stream 1. Let's talk about a game that I was very interesting in a good way. After being shut out 32-0 in week 1, PH a 38-36 over Fitz, and at one point this game was 38-14, and I thought PH was going to roll to a win. Now Fitz is a good team with athletes. They got a couple of late touchdowns and a fumble 6 that made it a bit more interesting game than it needed to be. But Joey Gilbert, 4 rushing touchdowns, threw for another, and had a quick kick punt that was downed inside the 5. He did a lot for the Red Hawks. I thought a very young defensive line for PH at times dominated the game, particularly in the second quarter. There were some nice players that I think took a big leap from week 1. That was the concern. A team that didn't have a lot of experience, well, got some, and I think they made a huge stride from week 1 to week 2.
Well, I think just a better matchup for them all around, playing Fitzgerald over Anchor Bay. And I'm going to chalk up the little run by Fitzgerald at the end maybe to just they're fatigued at that point because, again, this is a group, a lot of them play both sides of the ball and play a lot of snaps, so you might be a little run down at the end of games. Fortunately, they were far enough in front. They hung on. They got the win. I think this is a quality win because I don't know if Mott is up or down, but Fitz beat Mott in a similar game, 39-37. So I'm going to call this a big win for PH because they had a lot to prove to me after kind of getting spanked in week 1, where I didn't expect them to beat Anchor Bay, but I had hoped they'd be a little more competitive in that game.
And it was a really nice win. I thought the offense started to click a little more. Defense, again, flew around, made some nice plays. They go down to Mott, and that's going to be an interesting test because, all right, you did it once. Now can you go on the road and do it? They've been able to stay in the friendly confines of Memorial right in their backyard. Now they're going to have to get on a bus. Coach Perkins always says Mott's one of the toughest places to go and play. Let's see you go get a road win, and then I'll be really able to get behind the Red Hawks and say they're progressing nicely.
In recent history, some of PH's biggest wins have come against Warren Mott.
And I hope for another one this Friday night. In the MAC Gold, it was Marysville with a crossover against Hazel Park. It's 23-15, but it never, from everyone that was there, and Dave Taddy, who helps us out, was down there and said it was never really that close. Like, Hazel Park had some chances, but Marysville kind of let 2 drives get away from them that could have been 14 more points. And Hazel Park got the benefit of a doubt on a call that would have put Marysville inside, I think, the 20. Marysville gets the 23-15 win, a bounce-back win. Now they're going to enter MAC Gold play, but it was nice to see them get on the board with their first win.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nice recovery from week 1. Where, the score was close at Elmont, but it really wasn't close. And it sounds to me like they played a similar game with Hazel Park, only reversed, where it was close, but Marysville, it wasn't really close. I think this is a big step forward for Marysville, but now I need to see them make an even further step forward because I think they're, again, and this is a lot of teams in our area, I think their defense is the better side of the ball right now. And they're still kind of figuring it out on offense.
But a win, the MAC Gold's going to be interesting because they match up with Fitz. I just saw the Spartans. First of all, they can't punt. If Warren Fitzgerald could punt, they might have won the game. I think they attempted 4 punts. One almost went over the kid's head. He picked it up and tried to run. 2 went for about an average of 10 yards, and another one went 20 yards over the kid's head. So Marysville has a chance to really win the field position battle, but it's going to be contrasting styles because Fitz has a few athletes. They'll get in space, and before you know it, boom, out the gate in the end zone. However, when their offense stalls, they made the decision at some point to just go for it. It would be 4th and 12 inside their own 25, but rather than risk a snap going over the punter's head, they would go for it and you get a stop and you're right there on the doorstep. That's where Marysville can take advantage in this one.
You have to get the stops, which I think, again, the Vikings defense has played pretty well in 2 games, and they can do that kind of stuff. I am worried if it turns into a track meet, if Marysville could score.
That is what they don't want to do. That is the opposite of what Marysville needs to do to get it done. Other 2 MAC silver teams, not a whole lot to talk about. Marine City put up 71 points in a win over Madison, 71-30. Madison's got some kids offensively that obviously can score. I mean, they only gave up 14 or 21 to Armada. Madison scores 30, so I'm going to tip the cap and say, you know what, Madison has a few guys, but obviously defensively nowhere near ready to compete with the Mariners. a big win. I believe Volkman had 4 touchdowns. Osterlin had 4 touchdowns. I mean, you score 10, like that. There's a lot to go around there.
They had 200-yard rushers, and one of them was a kid that didn't even play in week 1, or at least didn't get a carry in week 1.
Yeah, so, I mean, we expected this from Marine City.
Yeah, I mean, we knew the Mariners would win this game, and we suspect that they're going to be the favorite in all their games until very late in the season.
I wouldn't say suspect. I mean, I know they play St. Clair next, but up until October 17th, when they go to Notre Dame Prep, they're not the underdog in any of those games. I mean, St. Clair did bounce back with a nice 58-12 win over Lincoln. It's what they needed to do. If it was
That's what you're supposed to do.
If it was
to a team like
anything
Lincoln.
but a blowout win, I would have been very concerned. But they get a blowout win, and they bounce back from kind of getting embarrassed in week 1. Now they have a chance to get something done against Marine City that they've only done, I believe, 3 times this century. That's beat Marine City and win the battle for the bell.
Yeah, this will be a big time show me game for St. Clair. I really believe, Brady, that after week 3 we'll know if St. Clair is really good or not as good as we'd hope they'd be.
I'll be at this game. It'll be about a 6:30 pregame on Get Stuck on Sports Stream 2. So have kickoff for you there. Been doing this rivalry, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years since 2021. And Marine City has dominated every game but one. And ironically, that was St. Clair's worst season of the last half decade, was the one that they had the best chance against Marine City. Listen, could St. Clair score a bit on Marine City? Yeah, I mean, this Marine City defense has given up 20-some points a game. That's not bad, but that's not elite. Where I'm worried is I think Marine City is going to move the ball at will against St. Clair. Armada's defense is pretty darn good. You got to see them. We'll talk about them in the next segment. But they move the ball. They hurt themselves at times. And then you put up 71 against Madison. St. Clair's going to need to force some stops, and I'm not sure how they're going to do it.
Yeah, that'll be the bigger part of it. Is I'm less concerned. Will St. Clair score a few touchdowns? I think so. But will they be able to stop Marine City from scoring a bunch of touchdowns is the bigger question.
And here's the thing with Marine City is they're not overlooking St. Clair. St. Clair could be 0-2 and be on a 400-game losing streak. Marine City is not going to be. That's the one game
they're still going to take them serious.
Never overlooking.
Yeah, and they're still going to go for they're going to be sharks in the water looking for some blood.
Because here's the other thing: you look at Marine City's next month of games: at Centerline, home to Southlake; at Sterling Heights, home to East Point. None of those get the blood pumping.
No.
So this is your last.
Centerline might give them the best game of all those teams, but
Cool,
they're not
keep
going to
it
beat
within
Marine
40.
City.
They beat Henry Ford and they beat Clawson by 12. They're not beating Marine City. It's not going to be a game. My point being is this is the last game until the aforementioned Notre Dame prep game that you really are in the locker room going, all right, let's go. Let's buckle up the chin straps. Obviously, they're going to go out and play hard in those other ones. But this is the last one that has any real deep meaning until mid-October.
I'm not going to argue that because I agree with it.
So St. Clair's got a lot to prove. Hope the Saints are up to the challenge. Real quick, just a couple of other semi-local games that I want to mention. New Haven, I'm not going to forget your Rockets, Dennis. They lost to Southlake 24-6.
They were robbed.
Their defense has actually been okay. Usually they're giving up 40, 50, and they've only given up 23 a game. So not a bad start. And Anchor Bay, after beating PH, they fall to Roseville 30-7. Roseville's pretty good, but I think Anchor Bay is going to have a rough time in the red.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gonna hesitate on that just a bit. They're going to lose to Dakota, Stevenson, and Eisenhower.
You're right.
Romeo and Chippewa Valley are kind of down this year.
Kind of wish
maybe there's a chance.
Kind of wish last year's Anchor Bay team was going up against this MAC Red, because the top might be higher, but the floor is a little lower. That was all the MAC scores and action from the last week of high school football. We'll take a break, come back, talk about the BWAC. Big win for our Armada Richmond, 2-0 and more. We'll be back right after this here on the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition right here on Thumbcoast TV.
From doctor's appointments to work, shopping, and dining adventures, Blue Water Area Transit buses are the lifeline of our community. Depend on us for a ride that connects you to life's essentials. Blue Water Area Transit. Ride the wave.
Riding the bus will avoid the hustle and save you lots of dough. Road rage, don't chance it. Ride Blue Water Transit everywhere you go.
Welcome back to the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition right here on Thumbcoast TV. Dennis, you were out in Armada for opening a BWAC play as Croslex, licking their wounds, came down to Armada and they kept licking because Armada put a hurt on them, a 34-12 win victory for the Tigers. Second straight year they've beaten Croslex. First time in school history they have back-to-back wins over Croslex. It wasn't even 34-12 close, was it?
Well, I mean, Armada was never challenged. It was scoreless for a little while, then Jack Clee picked off a pass at the 50 and took it back for a touchdown to make it 7-0, and then Armada started to do Armada things. They built their lead up to 24-0 before Croslex finally had a nice drive that was sparked by a 37-yard run, which was basically all of their running offense in that game.
Somehow more than all of it. It was
Yes.
like 120%.
They had 27 yards and 38 of them came on one play, so they went backwards on most of their other running plays. But they can throw the ball. Johnston to Slanik is a real thing, and they hooked up on a nice touchdown pass. But at 24-6, it's all of a sudden it was 34-6, and it ended up 34-12. So I'll say this: their offense dropped off, but I think Armada's defense had a lot to do with that. And their defense was actually a little better because you take away the pick six, their defense only gave up 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, or 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals, which is a lot less than what they gave up in week 1.
That is true, but let's start with Croslex before we give Armada the flowers, because the biggest concern is the stat you mentioned, 27 net rushing yards. We're not used to a Croslex team over the last 5-6 years that hasn't been able to run it down your throat. And it hasn't been a slow progression. Last year, they would run behind their big offensive line with the Hermans. A lot of those linemen and the Hermans are gone, and now they're not just not running it. It's not that they're choosing to throw it. It's kind of they have to choose to throw it.
Yeah, they really are struggling to find a run game and a guy that they trust to get a lot of carries. They're trying different guys. 3-4 guys got the ball against Armada, but none of them really did anything. And so it's just hard. And then at a certain point, Armada can pin their ears back and send everybody because they know it's a pass, or they can drop everybody back into coverage because they know it's a pass.
And there's no threat of the run game. We'll talk about Croslex a little bit. Back up against the wall when they go to Richmond, and Richmond came off a win. But let's not skip over the Armada Tigers. They're pretty darn good. I know Coach Rowley really loves that defense. Dennis, your first time seeing them this season, what were your thoughts on Armada?
The scary thing about Armada is they can be better.
Yes.
They're 2-0. They have 2 nice wins, and they can be better. Their defense is already really good. It's really good. And their offense is going to get better. You know, Malberg has 2 straight 100-yard rushing games, and he's frustrated right now about his numbers.
He hasn't had those huge runs. Like again, the Hazel Park game last year was a bit of an anomaly where he had like 300 yards on 5 carries or whatever it was. But even against Marine City, he had 1 run of 15 yards or longer. We're used to him, if he's getting the ball 15, 20 times, 2, 3, 4 of those are usually for 30, 40, or 50 yards.
Yeah, he had 29 yards at halftime, and then he came out on the first drive of the third quarter and rushed for 50 yards just on that drive, and started to get it going. So again, if that momentum carries over into week 3, look out, because once he gets going, they're already really good.
Yeah.
Then they're just going to be unbeatable.
Well, let's talk about, I mentioned Richmond is hosting Croslex. Richmond 2-0. It's been a while since the Blue Devils have started off the season 2-0. They are doing so with a little bit of flair, too. Like, they have had nice starts, but they're going, all right, well, they got by Yale. They got by St. Clair. 49-19 win over St. Clair. That game was in running time in the fourth quarter, and then they shut out Yale, hold them under 100 yards of total offense. They host Croslex, but Dennis, Richmond's defense is pretty darn good too. What do you make of this Blue Devil team?
Well, I'll tell you more after week 3, because Croslex is limping in, and sometimes a wounded animal is a dangerous animal. Obviously, it's the Pioneer season. If they go 0-3, I'm sorry, kids, they're done.
Because they also follow that up with a host. No, they go to Algonac.
They've got
to
North
Almont.
Branch, Almont, and Ogama Heights still on their schedule.
Yeah, sorry. They host North Branch in week 4, then go to Almont in week 5. Yeah, if you're 0-3, you're staring 0-5 right down the barrel.
Yeah, so it's a big game for them, but it's also a big game for Richmond because they have been owned by Croslex in recent years, and most of the games have not been pretty. This is your opportunity to turn the tables on a hated rival and stick it to them. Go out and do it. Prove to me that you are a team that I have to take serious this year and win this football game.
And much like I said about Marine City and St. Clair, even though Croslex is 0-2, and they have not looked pretty going 0-2, Richmond isn't overlooking them. Haven't beat them since 2019. And you're right, outside of one 27-10 game, the rest of the games have been in the vicinity of like 56-6. Like, they have been super running time laughers. And Richmond, trust me, they know they owe them a few. They don't feel bad for Croslex. For the Pioneers, I think it goes one of two ways. They either back against the wall, fight for their postseason lives really in week 3, or if things go south, they start to turn on each other and you start to see heads hang and here we go again, and it's going to make for a long season.
Well, we're used to the Pioneers being tough, and this year it's going to have to be more than physically tough. They're going to have to be mentally tough. Absolutely.
Other games in the BUAC, Almont took care of Emily City 31-14. This was 28-0. Emily City's offense didn't do much, but the last handful of seasons, they've given up like 50-something to Almont. So in that regard, an improvement. But Dennis, I think this Almont defense, I know they've given up 5 total touchdowns, but I think 4 of the 5 have been in the, defensively, all 4 touchdowns they've given up have been in the fourth quarter, and the other one that wasn't was a kickoff return. This Almont defense is really, really good. The numbers are just hiding it a little bit because they give up late scores.
Well, yeah, the 2 big plays against Marysville plus a kick return, that's how the Vikings got their 21 points. And again, some late scores by Emily City. I'm going to assume at that point you had younger people in the game getting some experience. Although, and you brought it up on our podcast, let's give the Spartans credit because this is a game in the past that they would have given up at halftime and gotten rolled. And at least they battled in the second half and tried to make it competitive.
And here's the thing. It's all about where you are as a program. All right, I used Richmond as the comparison. If Richmond loses 31-14 to Almont, I'm not having the same tone. I'm going, man, you had a chance against the big boy. You didn't prove it. You're not taking that next step. Everyone, listen, Coach Brown will be the first to admit it. Emily City, when he took over a few years ago, has been on the mat. They're very slowly trying to get up, and progress has been slow. But this is something that you can point to when you're trying to get new kids to come out and say, listen, 2 years ago we lost 50-something to nothing or whatever it was. I don't have the exact number in front of me. We're getting closer. If we get half a dozen more kids out from the school, who knows? Maybe that gap gets smaller and smaller, and now we're one of the teams that are competing week in and week out. So in 2 years, maybe even next year, I might not be saying this, but for this year, I'm going to say nice job. And for Almont, yeah, you did what you were supposed to do. I'm not begrudging them at all. I actually liked both teams' performances in this one. North Branch bounced back with a 49-6 win over Algonac. I think they were a little upset. Now, Gaylord, who they lost to in week 1, did go on to beat Kingsley, who was a state champion 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So,
which probably only made the Broncos feel worse because they really feel like they were the better team in week 1 and they shot themselves in the foot. They had the long drive where they fumbled the ball instead of scoring, or they feel like they could have won that game up in Gaylord. I kind of figured, that they're a different speed. Algonac had a lot of success in week 1, but North Branch is a different kind of animal than what Mooney is right now. And I was a little worried if the Muskrats would be able to keep pace with the Broncos, and the Broncos did what they can do.
Absolutely. So I like that they bounced back. And I'm not going to write off Algonac yet because I still think there's a chance North Branch is, at the end of the season, the BWAC champion. And Algonac, not at that point yet. The 2 BWAC games coming up on Friday we didn't talk about. Poor Algonac has to now go to Armada. That's not going to be a fun time for Algonac. And North Branch hosts Emily City. Can I get a repeat performance from the Spartans? Hey, prove you're at least at the dinner table with them. Don't go into halftime down 42-0. I think their defense has shown that they're all right. You only gave up 14 to Flint Powers, or 13 to Flint Powers, 31 to Almont. Go to North Branch and be competitive in this game. Have some North Branch fans a little uncomfortable in the first half.
Yeah, because you know how North Branch like to blitzkrieg teams and get up fast, or as fast as they can, and then they just run and run and run and run, and you have no chance to catch up at that point because the clock is always moving.
Exactly. One other game in St. Clair County, Mooney went down to Oakland Christian and took a 38-2 loss. Mooney struggling to get out of the gates with some new guys.
Yeah, again, they're young. They've got a lot of sophomores, a lot of freshmen, and even some of their juniors haven't hit the growth spurt yet. They need to get bigger and stronger, and you can't do that overnight.
No.
And so they're taking their lumps here in the first 2 weeks of the season. Algonac was bigger and stronger, and I'm going to assume that Oakland Christian had an advantage as well with a 38-2 win.
How about the win of the weekend? And it wasn't any of the games we've talked about. Harbor Beach actually played a neutral site game against Ottawa Lake Whiteford in Davison, 43-14.
Yeah, and they have crushed 2 good football teams. They beat Cass City 42-8. And Cass City won this week 53-0 over Hemlock. So they're not a bad team. And then, again, Ottawa Lakes, for the last 10 years, I think they've been to the finals 4 times, won 2 state championships. Good football team. And Beach has made mincemeat out of both of them. They've got Ubley this week, their biggest rival.
And I think they're going to take care of Ubley. Although the Bearcats did get a nice win over Clarkston Everest, 22-14, after getting shut out in week 1. So I'll give a tip of the cap to the Bearcats. I was not expecting that bounce-back win.
See? Always with the negative waves. Ubley is Ubley.
They are.
All they do is win.
Well, it might be hard for them to win this week against Harbor Beach.
They started like 0-3 last year and made the playoffs.
And went 6-3 at the end of the year. Marlette fell at Sandusky 36-14. I like that win for the Wolves.
Yeah, and I was a little surprised and I'm a little disappointed in the Red Raiders. I thought that they would win this football game actually in a low-scoring affair. Good for Sandusky, though, after getting shut out in week 1. They exploded at home. I told you home field makes a difference.
Yeah, it must have. Final minute, we'll rifle through 8-man scores. Brown City still has not given up a point, a 68-0 win against Memphis.
No surprise there.
They actually get to come home to play K-Pac, who, after winning 42-0 in week 1, fell 42-0 in week 2
they
to
might
Kingston.
lose 42-0 this week.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Deckerville, after having to survive against All Saints in week 1, 62-6 over Dryden.
kind of saw that one coming too.
Yeah, maybe not 62-6, but a convincing
I saw
win.
62-6.
Yeah, of course you did. Hindsight's 2020.
Oh, Dryden struggled with North Huron, a team in the
Red.
It used to be the Stripes.
Big Thumb Red.
Yeah.
CPS had to drive all the way to Whitmore Prescott, an 86-20 loss.
Wow.
Hey.
It's tough to give up 86 points.
Again, 8-man, there's not backups to put in,
I know,
especially at
but
the
with
really small schools.
with super running time going, it's still tough to score 86
And
points.
Peck is 2-0, 42-20 win, down at New Haven Merritt.
Yeah, I like this Peck team. This is fun so far. They beat Mayville, and now of course, they're supposed to beat New Haven Merritt, and they're probably going to beat whoever they're playing this week. I think it's Akron Fairgrove.
They're at Caseville.
They're at Caseville. They're going to win that game.
All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition. Again, this Friday night, Dennis will be right here on Thumb Coast TV for TV as Utica Ford comes up to Port Huron Northern. You can also listen on Get Stuck on Sports Stream 1. I will be at East China Stadium for the Battle for the Bell. St. Clair Marine City, 6:30 pregame with a 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll talk to you next week right here on Thumb Coast TV on the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition.